Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. So today we are back with a new video for one of our playlist which is running on agentic AI topics. The topics are related to A2A, MCPs and other related topics which you need for agentic AI in today's world. So today we're going to talk about GitHub Copilot and how as a developer I can leverage GitHub Copilot to the full extent to use it to improve my productivity, considering the projects that I have and how to use that efficiently in my project, which is of medium scale, small scale, or maybe a large scale as well. So get ready for today's content. Let's get into it. So you might have seen today a lot of developers have started using these AI agents or AI assistants, I would call it, like GitHub Copilot or Cursor or let's say Cloud Code, anything like that. But how to use that efficiently in your day to day practices to improve your productivity. That is the major concern. How, as a business user, I would look at when I give a license to any developer, because as a business user I would like to look at the metrics, how GitHub Copilot is able to optimize my productivity and able to speed up my release cycle as well. So those are the key metrics which as a business user how I will look at it. Now as a developer, if I use GitHub Copilot efficiently, that's where I can improve my productivity, increase my skills, and at the same time provide high velocity and high productivity as well. Now let's deep dive into it. One of the use cases or few of the use cases that we talked about or that we think are important in today's world. Now, first thing is whenever as a developer I work on different use cases on a code base, those can be many, but we have talked about few in this video. Task research or exploration. Now, for example, you are doing you have got a feature to develop on an existing code base which can be a small, medium or a large one. When I say small, medium, and large, which means the line of codes are differentiating factors between these categories. Now, when you have to work on a feature, somewhere you don't know the code base and you need to understand the code base first, or you need to understand that piece of code base where you have to work on for the next feature. So, that is where you will have to first research on that topic as well. That is where GitHub Copilot works quite efficiently if you try to prompt it as well efficiently in your day to day journey. Those use cases can be related to the code example, generating the code examples or a boilerplate code, API exploration, or let's say any existing functionality which is written in your code base. Then, while doing all these activities, you need to understand the context switching is pretty important. How you are moving from one use case to another use case while researching. So, it is pretty important to understand the context switching part. So this is going to be the very important use case as a developer, how I should start using or start dividing my use cases for the GitHub Copilot. As we go along, as we talk about different use cases, we will talk about in practical as well. So let's move to the next one, which is on the feature development and a boilerplate automation. Now, for example, after the task research, you got to know that this X feature you would have to develop in, let's say, 5 different stories, 10 different stories, or whatever. So you have to develop a feature now. Now, how to develop it? How to develop it efficiently that you spend your time analyzing or getting the output reviewed from the GitHub Copilot, not telling it what to do or not spending much time on what to do. Because as a developer, we are an instructor to GitHub Copilot. Our role is to instruct and get the work done and review the work which is done by the Copilot. If we don't identify the use case efficiently, if we don't make ourselves ready accordingly for those use cases, so then we may waste a lot of time in terms of instructing the GitHub Copilot itself in the wrong way, which may not prove to us to be a productive one. So that's where why identifying these use cases are important, so that you don't waste your time in terms of instructing the GitHub Copilot or telling it what to do and what not to do, not the way how you understand it. So then the third use case is about bug fixing, debugging assistance. This is also pretty important in today's world. So you might have seen different use cases online also before coming to this video. If you haven't seen, so this is one of the important use case where developers spend most of their time in different projects in different organizations, where they work on a code base which has bugs, where the responsibility is to just fix those bugs via debugging or via understanding the edge cases, by talking to different stakeholders, and then analyze the fixes, which takes obviously a lot of time. And sometimes the bug fixes are quite huge, that usually a lot of developers have to be employed to work on those fixes as well. And this is one of the most tedious use cases also. If you have to talk of GitHub Copilot AI Assistant or any of the AI assistant where you are needing help on bug fixing from these AI assistants, because bug fixing is a bit of tedious job if you are new to the code base and you don't understand it well. So because the objective is, the AI assistant can give you multiple solutions which might not fit for your development or the bug fix which you are working on a code base. So that's where you need to judge well whether your bug fixes are coming well or not, or you need to suggest some other solution as well. The fourth is the test case creation and the quality assurance. So if you want to create the test cases, those test cases can be the unit test cases or the test cases for the manual QA activities, or let's say automation QA activities. So those test cases generation is a pretty important step. So this is also one of the major use cases that we can talk about. Then the code review. Once you are ready with your code, whether it is for a feature, for a bug, for the any test cases creation, you are ready for the code review as the next step, which is usually done by any of your senior peers, or let's say any of the agents which are employed on GitHub or any of the VCS systems. But now you can try and explore this use case and employ in your local system itself a reviewer system which will review your code before pushing onto the GitHub. Then the additional use cases can be onboarding, documentation for your entire project, and DevOps activities as well. Then these are some of the numbers which I have shown. These are not the actual numbers, I would say, but these are just the metrics which I have shown as a business user, how I would look at these metrics when a developer uses it, and how I would like to justify it, whether it is a successful use or not. So that's about it. Now let's look at how to use these, how to use GitHub Copilot for these use cases. Now, first of all, we need to be aware of these instructions file. What are these instructions file in the GitHub Copilot? But let's, before jumping on that, I'll just explain you what I am trying to do here. So this is the VS Code window that you can see. In this, I have just opened a dummy project here, which has the .github folder. Inside that, we have instructions, and then I have test.instructions MD file just for demonstration. Now, this is the GitHub Copilot chat window, where, as you can see, all those options which you usually see in your window as well. Now, the same thing, now I would start exploring or start explaining you what to do for different use cases. Now let's say I have different use cases of task research, then feature development, bug fixes, and test case generation. So for each of these test cases or each of these use cases, I would say you would have to deploy, or you should create a separate instruction file which would be only responsible for a specific use case. Now let's say I want to do a task research. So I will create a new instructions file here which will do a task dot instructions dot md. Now this file will be only working for a instruct task research. Let's say you write some plain instruction, you work as a task researcher on my code base whose responsibility, yeah, so it will give you some suggestions also, you say, so you can take those if you need them. So let's say I'm just taking them as it is coming along. So this is also pretty handy feature, like you can generate these instructions file quickly with this use case as and when you start writing. So as you can see, I have just written one instruction file which says task researcher on my code base responsibility is to analyze, and then your task should be formatted in a markdown code block which where each task on a new line, and each task should have a separate phrase that describe the task followed by the description. Task research analyze the code base to identify the potential and the feature development, then bug fix and all that. So you can remove this whatever you don't need. So let's say this one I don't need for now. So you say analyze the code base to identify potentially. So let's say now how I want to use it. Now I'll use it. I'll say select task, and then I'll start using it. Let's say task researcher, and then it says your task should be modified in a markdown code block and each task on a new line. So let's say I mention a task one. What is in my code base? Let's say prepare my documentation, something like that. So I give it definitely something like this. So whenever you do the markdown documentation, so you basically whenever you highlight hash something like that, so then it will highlight you something like this, as you can see in the chat window, which is in the bold letters for the task one. So now you can see I attached the task instructions MD, which is I have attached manually, and then the test instructions MD, which is already attached in this chat. So now to prepare the documentation as a task researcher, I will analyze your code base and potentially task will be automated, improved, that format in a markdown format and all that. So as you can see, I've written this instruction when what you have to do when you see task research. So analyze the code base to identify potential tasks that can be automated or improved and so on. So here are the potential tasks for your documentation. Analyze the code base to identify potential tasks, whether API documentation, time zone extension support, and all that. So this is one of the examples how you can use it. And then similar way, you can create another instructions for your feature. Let's say instructions, and you can write instructions according to your project need. And then you should have a separate uh, file for your project knowledge also, so that whenever you message any message for any query or update, so you should attach this knowledge instructions file also, so that whenever you have to work on a feature or any bug fix, so GitHub Copilot should get an additional information from your end on the basis of the project. So the project which you are giving to it in the Copilot, it can identify it based on the code that is written. But if you say an additional information from your end based on what folders contain what kind of meaningful information, what is more critical, what not, and all those things, maybe in a one separate instructions file, that will obviously come handy whenever you are working on a features, whenever you are working on a, let's say, bugs or test case generation. It will definitely help. So my suggestion is, for identify your use cases, create separate instructions file, and then have a knowledge base instruction file also for your project, which will definitely help you in terms of optimizing your productivity. Now, what all other ways you can employ apart from the instructions file? So there are other ways which you can employ, obviously, like using extensions. You can create an VS Code extension which you can use definitely, rather than using this instruction file. So you can just trigger these extensions and just mention what you want to do and all that. And other point is, let's say you want to use the MCP servers, so you can employ an external MCP server with which you can talk and get the required information as well. But I feel those are a bit of advanced use cases if you are just kickstarting it. But if you are a new developer and starting to employ this for the first time, or maybe in the initial days of the using GitHub Copilot, this would be an initial good kickstarter to making it more structured as well. And this will actually pave way for you for agentic project development as well. So I hope you like the video. So if you do like the content, do subscribe to our channel to get the upcoming videos and content. And do like and share the videos as well with your groups and friends, so that they also get the additional amount of knowledge as well. Thank you.